So for those of you who don't know, I am a second year PhD student here at the National University of Singapore. I came here last January and it's already like March of 2024. So I've been around for a good 15-16 months in Singapore now. And the main reason why I want to make this video is because when I came to this country, I was feeling a bit lost and a bit out of place because Singapore culture, especially for an Indian, is very different from India. There are some stuff about getting your SIM card, your bank account, etc. that you don't usually do in India, and for a first time traveler like me, it took a while to get used to. So the first thing you'll need to do after coming to Singapore is first set up a bank account, and for that, even before that, you'll need a SIM card. Unlike India, you don't have to go to a specific shop made for mobile communications, etc. You can just walk into any retail store here and buy a SIM card for yourself. Which one to choose? There are a bunch of options, but the most popular one here is Singtel. When you buy a SIM here, you will get the option, of course, to switch your WhatsApp number to the Singapore number. In my experience, I did not do that, but I feel like that is something you should do for communication regarding events, your reservations, etc. Generally, Singapore prefers communication over WhatsApp, and if you already have your Singapore number registered to your WhatsApp, I think that would just make your life easier. Once you have your SIM card, which shouldn't be that hard, the next most important step is setting up your bank account. And it's important to get a bank account not just to get your stipend if you're a PhD student, but even if you're a master's student or an undergrad, I think it's really important to set up a bank account for the long term because like India, the culture here is cashless mostly, and so direct payment via your debit card are usually preferred. Another thing is that the Singapore's MRT, the Metro Rail Transit System, which is sort of their railways, and the bus service, you can directly tap your debit card onto those services. Of course, there's an option to get a specific metro card, which is called EasyLink. But I personally, since I don't see any difference in the price of these two services, I just tap my debit card everywhere. It's very convenient. So to open up a bank account as an international student or an employee here in Singapore, you'll of course need your long-term visit pass. So maybe your student pass, your employment pass, etc. You'll need your SIM card and verification from your SIM card provider that you are an owner of their SIM. So unlike India, where something like this would be done over OTP, here you'll actually need a physical letter from the SIM card provider about your ownership. Another thing that you should keep in mind is that opening up a bank account here takes about 3 weeks or 4 weeks of time. Yes, it can be that long, primarily because the online portal isn't very efficient and you would probably get stuck at one step or the other. So I usually recommend that you first apply online, you let it go on for like a week, 1.5 weeks or something, and then you go to the branch physically and request them to just do it for you. So another thing that you need to take care of, especially if you're a PhD student, is the cycle of your salaries that come in every month, or stipend in case of PhD students. So for example, in NUS, you get a stipend every 18th of the month. And for example, if I came in January, if I'm not able to complete all my procedures by, I think, the end of January for bank account setup, then I won't get my stipend until, I think, February end or March beginning. Okay, with that out of the way, I want to talk to you about the Singapore culture as well. When you have your bank account set up, your SIM card in your phone, hopefully you'll want to explore Singapore. This was the first time I was traveling outside of India, for example, and so I was really excited to go around Singapore. It's a beautiful country, it's a safe country, more importantly, and the public transportation, which is relatively cheaper, is quite efficient. A few things to note though, Singapore is mostly a daytime culture, so that means that they wake up early and they go to bed early, and the shops specifically close quite early. So for example, usually most of the eateries outside would be closed by around 8 or 9, and you'll barely see someone outside on the roads, especially after 11 p.m. or something, unless you are in one of the main tourist spots like Marina Bay Sands. Another nice part of the Singaporean culture is their language. Well, officially it's supposed to be English, but they have their own variant of English that they call Singlish or Singapore plus English, I guess. Um, it's a more efficient form of English, where you don't necessarily use all the grammatical tools that you usually use in English. It takes a while to get used to, even if you're in campus and talking to other people. Usually, Singlish is a bit hard to catch up on, but rest assured that a few months into the Singapore culture, hopefully you'll have a better grasp on the language. A Singaporean impact that I've had on my own accent is the pronunciation of T, or more importantly TH. So if I say three as in English in India, that has evolved to something like tree, so like a very hard th sound here in Singapore. And I also want to mention a few fun things to do around in Singapore. I personally am a big fan of go-karting. There are a few go-karting arenas here in Singapore. It's a bit expensive, but if you are interested in go-karting, just contact me. I'd be more than happy to join you. I won't fund it for you, but yeah, we can at least go together. Of course, there are other usual touristy things that you can do in Singapore, like go to Marina Bay Sands, which is the central region in the country where all the touristy stuff happens, the Formula 1 races happen, etc. There are actually, interestingly, a bunch of forts in Singapore, because Singapore was an important Asian hub, a harbour mostly for when the Britishers had a dominant impact on Asia. And then interestingly, Singapore, although it feels like a concrete jungle, has a bunch of treks that you can take in the central nature reserve area. You can go to beaches. Some of them are artificial, some of them are natural, and you can also go to a bunch of islands which also form a part of Singapore. So there's Pulau Ubin to the northeast. There's St. John's and Lazarus Islands in the south, and a bunch of other options. But I just find it quite surprising that a country as small as Singapore actually has so much to offer. So if you're looking around, I think you'll find a lot of places to go. Let's come back to Singapore and actually spending your daily life here. Most importantly, you'll probably need groceries and stuff of daily use, such as, I don't know, hangers for your clothes, maybe room fresheners, floor cleaners, stuff like that. Where do you get all of that? Well, of course, there are a lot of options, but the most cheap option, I think, that you'll probably find in Singapore, and which is very hard to miss, is the supermarket chain called FairPrice. So FairPrice is all around Singapore. There's one very near to the NUS campus if you're coming to NUS, and you'd find that usually everything is cheaper there, especially if you're buying stuff which has a label of FairPrice on it. So for example, if I have to buy a floor cleaner from Dettol versus the same floor cleaner with almost exactly identical packaging from FairPrice, the FairPrice option would be slightly cheaper. Importantly, you can also download their NTUC app. And if you're coming for the long term, this is very useful, because if you make a purchase and pay for it using the NTUC app, you, I think, get 1% back in points, and then you can redeem those points for future payments via the app. 1 point roughly translates into $1, I think, and so you can accumulate points over time and save a bunch of money, even though it's just 1% over 4 years of time or something like that you'll probably spend in Singapore. I think you'll save a lot. And last but not the least, and probably the most important point that you should keep in mind when you come to Singapore, is budgeting. So how much exactly would you spend in a month here in Singapore, including, for example, your house rent, your daily groceries, getting out of your room, etc. And I think while this would vary a lot for anyone coming here depending on their lifestyle, I can give you a rough estimate of what my spendings are and how your spendings might be affected by the choices you make. The biggest expense you'll probably have when you come to Singapore is housing, because renting a house here in Singapore is no joke. The costs vary depending upon which type of house you'll buy, so let me break it down for you. The most basic one is a common room. So if you're renting out a room in a normal HDB, which are their government housing, it should cost you somewhere around 1,000 to 1,400 Singapore dollars already. And that's a common room in which you have a shared kitchen, a shared bathroom, and shared common spaces, of course. If you go for a more luxurious option, such as getting a common room in a condo, a condominium, which are a bit more posh houses located in more posh localities, you can expect up to 2000 Singapore dollars for a common room of the same criteria as the HDB in a condo. Otherwise, if you're traveling with family and you want a whole house for yourself, maybe a 1 BHK, while an HDB can be around 1500 to 2000 Singapore dollars, a 1 BHK condominium would cost you at least 3000 Singapore dollars. And of course, if you're super rich, you don't need to worry about money. Why are you watching this video in the first place anyways? But then you can spend maybe tens of thousands of dollars to get a place somewhere in Marina Bay Sands. I don't know. Me personally, right now I'm living in the NUS campus housing, which is super cheap, and I'm renting out the cheapest option even in this housing, so it costs me only around 600 Singapore dollars. But I'm gonna get kicked out after this semester because this housing is really competitive. They give preference to first year PhD students, and I'm already in my second one. So in the next housing application cycle, I don't expect to get housing here. If I go outside, I'll probably rent out a common room in an HDB, and as I said, it should cost me somewhere around 1000 to 1400 Singapore dollars. The next most expensive class of spendings that you'll do in a month are probably going to be your personal expenses. Stuff like, again, snacks, going out for dinners or lunches, maybe getting groceries for making your food yourself, etc. I'd say for a normal lifestyle, this shouldn't cost you more than 1000 to 1200 Singapore dollars. But of course, it can go as high as you want it to be, simply because Singapore offers you so many options to spend your money at. Me personally, since I'm a vegetarian, I have to spend a lot more if I go outside and eat vegetarian food, because Singapore again has a mostly dominant non-vegetarian culture. They really love their chicken rice, for example, and the rice that they have here is the sticky rice kind, so it's not exactly the type of rice I like either. And so having vegetarian food here, maybe something that includes basmati rice, the one that's famous in India, or maybe some Indian curry or something, can cost you quite a bit, $15 plus per meal. Of course, as a student who's on a stipend here, I can't afford to pay that much, and so I cook for myself. Thankfully, PGP offers kitchens on all floors, and most of my meals are made by myself or my friends, and I just go and tag along with them. But anyways, personal expenses, I think you can do under 1000 Singapore dollars even if you go outside. Inclusive of everything, I think you should be able to do within 2500 to 3000 Singapore dollars per month. And that's a very high level estimate, I think, for someone with a reasonable lifestyle. The NUS Research Scholarship, which I am currently on as a PhD student, offers just about the right money for this. So it's manageable. I'm sure I'm missing out on some things that you still want to know about your time in Singapore. So feel free to use the comment section down below to tell me about those things, and I'll hopefully get back to you with a reply. You can also catch me on Instagram or LinkedIn. The links would be in the description. A lot of people have done that in the past, and trust me, I do reply whenever I can. Thanks again for watching this video. My name is Shubham Kejriwal, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.